Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I am Susan Kent, Senate DFL leader in the Minnesota Senate. All of us here today are committed to a conversation focused on gun violence prevention that keeps Minnesotans safe. Republicans say that they are concerned about increasing urban violence, but they're refusing to even consider any plans to keep firearms out of the hands of dangerous people. Every Minnesotan deserves to live free of gun violence. And as elected officials, it is our responsibility to take meaningful action to help keep our communities safe. Minnesotans deserve a legislature that takes meaningful action to curb the epidemic of senseless gun violence, and the measures that are being heard in committee today just don't do it. The bills being pushed forward by Senate Republicans today simply do not do enough to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people, domestic abusers, and those who may harm themselves. There are common sense gun safety measures we can work together on to make our families, communities in Minnesota safer. 9 out of 10 Minnesotans support expanded background checks, but instead of passing them or emergency risk protection orders that would keep Minnesotans safe, Republicans are pretending to pass bipartisan bills, air quotes, that we know simply won't do enough to prevent gun violence. The House has listened to Minnesotans by passing both. Senate Republicans are the only thing standing in the way of these bills becoming law. And with that, I would like to turn it over to DFL Committee Lead on the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, Ron Latz.
Thank you, Senator Kent. The GOP is claiming that they're going to beef up current law, but at the same time, they have been complaining that existing law is not enforced. So I don't know how you have it both ways. If they want to focus on enforcement by claiming our good law enforcement officers aren't doing their jobs, basically, yet they're going to put more laws on the books that don't have any demonstrated evidence that they will actually prevent gun violence. Their plan is to increase penalties on Minnesotans. And while these are fine and good things to do in measured responses to situations, they won't actually save many lives. Instead, we've got real solutions that we've been fighting for meaningful hearings on for many years now that we know will save lives and that we know are bipartisan. As Senator Kent mentioned, 90% of Minnesotans support the background check bill, and the extreme risk protective order bill is as popular as well. And in fact, 87% of gun owners support background checks, including NRA members, including Gun Owners Caucus members. So that's about as bipartisan as you can get. The only place they're not bipartisan is in the authorship here in the legislature. So don't be distracted into thinking that the bills that are going to be heard in committee today are a panacea or meaningful solutions. Yeah, they probably will get bipartisan support down the road, but they're milquetoast in comparison to what we should be passing. We value Minnesotans' opinions, and we're trying to pass bills that reflect Minnesotans' opinions here. And in fact, what the GOP is doing, frankly, in the way that they're messaging this, is they're exacerbating the urban-rural divide. Now, we know that that is one of their campaign strategies for the 2020 elections. They tried to do it in 2018 as well. We had a governor who campaigned on a One Minnesota platform. And a governor, by the way, who supports both of the background check and the extreme risk protective order bills. But we shouldn't fall into that trap that the GOP wants us to use in terms of an urban-rural divide, because the support for these bills is broad and deep across all of Minnesota. And we don't need technical corrections like, for example, Senator Lang's bill is. That will accomplish next to nothing. We need some real meaningful solutions, and that's what we've been pushing for. We need to fill in the gaps in the laws, not just strengthen some of the existing laws. Our two bills would fill the gaps in the laws. Now, the Hibbing hearing was not a hearing on the merits. We got to testify a bit. No action was allowed to be taken there. We're still pushing, have been for years now, for hearings at which we could take action on the background check bills and the extreme risk protection order bill. The House has taken action. It's time for the Senate to do that too. Senator Pappas?
Thank you. I just wanted to share a little personal story. I'm not a gun owner, but hunting and gun ownership is a long tradition in my Minnesota family. In fact, my brother comes back to Minnesota. He lives in Florida now every fall. He shoots the deer, he returns to Florida, and our Minnesota family gets to eat venison. His ability to do that is not remotely threatened by expanded background checks or the extreme risk protection order, both proven to reduce gun violence in states that have enacted them. Let's pass these bills, and I'll make venison meatballs to celebrate. And there are many more serious issues that will come up during the hearing, and I'll have more comments.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Carrie Dietzig, and I have the honor and privilege to represent the east side of Minneapolis. I'm here today to support Senator Latz's bill. I'm on the Judiciary Committee. Minnesotans have told us repeatedly that they want safe, sensible gun violence prevention bills, and Senator Latz's bills do that. We need more than the technical changes that the Republican bills are offering. We want, and Minnesotans want, they demand solutions, and Senator Latz's bill will provide solutions. Thank you.
And now we'd like to open it up for questions.
I have a question, perhaps Senator Dietzig might address it. The 10th bill they're proposing would require 10% of the local government aid to be used just for police officers. This would be just for Minneapolis and St. Paul. Would that do anything, and how do you feel about it, it being for Minneapolis?
So I think it is, again, adding to the urban-rural divide, which is a myth. I think we are one Minnesotan. We have Senator Latz's bill on the emergency risk protection order would help cut suicides by gun across the state. Minneapolis gets about $80 million in LGA. St. Paul gets about $69 million. I know Minneapolis budget, in their most recent budget, they passed the police portion of their criminal justice, whatever they call it, public safety portion, was about $100 million. So we're actually putting more into police officers than we are getting into LGA. So if they want to give us more to help provide more protection, I think that would be, we would probably welcome that. And it's not just the police officers. I know they also, in Minneapolis, had a pilot project that they funded that would put more, they partnered with Hennepin County to put more mental health workers with police so that they are called, when they get those calls on the mental health calls, somebody goes with them. So I think that I welcome the conversation of how do we help our urban core and how do we help reduce crime across the state. But I think targeting Minneapolis and St. Paul is unfair. And I think, again, we should have that conversation of what Minneapolis is, how much they give us. And if they want to give us more, that'd be great.
Are you saying, I want to make sure I understand you clearly. Are you saying that the city of Minneapolis spends more on public safety than their entire LGA allotment already?
That's my understanding, yes. I can give you I have the spreadsheet in my office, so I can give you that specifics.
And I have very similar figures from St. Paul. St. Paul spends $173 million general fund. That includes fire services. They're increasing their police department's budget by $4.5 million. That's 4.5% over their department's approved budget. They have a sworn strength of 630 police officers. That will be the highest number St. Paul has ever had. So this requirement, though, for LGA, where it would really hurt the money, the $2.9 million they want to put into community services, where they have evidence-based prevention activities supporting youth, et cetera, that they've done research around the country to find out what is most effective in preventing violence down the road. And that would really hurt our prevention budget to be required to hire more police officers when we've got plenty already. And the other thing I wanted to say is that the crime rate in St. Paul and all over the country has been in a downward trend since 1995. We had a spike last year. That happens in communities. It happens in suburban communities. It happens in rural communities. That some year you just have a bad year where you have a couple of high-profile murders. But overall, the trend is down.
I just want to add to that what Senator Pappas said on the reduction in other community services. Senator Ingebrigtsen had a bill last year, YIPA, Youth Intervention Prevention Act, for $10 million. We offered, they did not fund it in their judiciary budget bill. We offered it we offered 1 million as an amendment, and that failed on a partisan vote. And then they didn't include more money. They did not, I believe, include more money in their final budget. So again, if you want to help get at some of the root causes, then let's help fund and provide after-school opportunities and youth violence prevention opportunities for youth. They all want, and that's what we hear when we go to the communities and we talk to people, the kids want jobs. The families want after-school programs, and they want help to keep their kids out of violence and keep their kids away from gang. So let's fund that.
Senator Pappas, I'm sorry, is the 2.9 million you mentioned, is that something that St. Paul currently has that is funded through LGAA?
I don't, no, it is not. It's funded from the general fund. The money is commingled. So you can't really say what's funded by LGA and what's funded by the levy in St. Paul.
And I just had a question for Senator Latz. You mentioned, I think, a milquetoast response. It sounds as if, and maybe I'm wrong, that you're saying we're not against these specific bills, but they're not going to do anything. They're not going to really accomplish what our bills would accomplish. Is that right? I mean, will you be voting against these bills?
I think you're right on, Esme. I think these are bills that I will probably support. I carried the bill on straw purchasers a number of years ago that was brought to me by the Hennepin County attorney to increase the penalties to gross misdemeanors. Now they want to increase them to felonies. So these are like old style approaches to protecting the public safety, but we need more than that. We need something that's been proven effective. And just, you probably have heard these statistics before because I use them at most of these related press conferences. But the data that I have is that in states that have background checks, there's a 46% fewer women are shot to death by intimate partners. 48% fewer law enforcement are killed by guns. 48% firearm suicides, which is especially a problem, by the way, more of a problem in greater Minnesota than it is in the metro. 48% fewer illegally trafficked guns. These are evidence-based solutions that we are offering that will have an important impact on reducing gun violence. Where's the evidence that any of the Republican proposals are going to have any specific impact, let an impact that dramatic?
What's the site for those statistics, please?
Every town, USA did an analysis of FBI and CDC data. There was another, actually, a perfect case study in the state of Missouri, because for a while they did not have background checks. Then they had background checks, and then they repealed their background checks. When they repealed their background checks, they saw a 25% increase in firearm homicides and a 150% increase in likely trafficked guns. So we've got evidence to support our claim that these are real solutions, that they're going to make a difference. And you can look at the data on the extreme risk protective orders going back, Connecticut, which has had, I think, the longest in the nation. They'll give you actual numbers on the suicides that they believe they have prevented over the years. And Florida, just recently passed it, and it's had an impact there as well. And the states that have been passing these most recently are Republican-controlled states. So I don't understand what the objection is, frankly. It certainly can't hurt, and we've got evidence that it's going to help.
And I would add that this is part of a pattern that we've seen on behalf of our Republican colleagues. They put a label on something, but then you peel the label off and there's something a little different underneath it. This is a case where there is an argument being made that they're passing gun violence prevention bills, but when you look at the data, that's not what's really happening here. But they want to take credit for it, so they can go out, some people can go out and campaign on it. We have similar things they talk about, that they're going to support election security. Well, they've made a big habit of avoiding accepting federal election security funds. It'll be interesting to see if we can get that done this year. But what that really means is their voter ID provision, which we know is a solution without a problem. We've seen similar sorts of things in education where they talk about school safety and they put some funds towards school safety, but if you look at it over the expanse of the many Minnesota schools, it doesn't really provide much support. And they're doing that in order to avoid having conversations about gun safety. So I would just suggest that, you know, this is part of an election year strategy, and we should just all pay attention to what's actually behind the label.
Are there any other questions?
I'll just tell you quickly why it's an election year strategy this year. It's because the proposals that we have in the Senate that the House has already passed got traction in the 2018 election because people were using those issues as determining factors on how to vote. And you saw it especially in the seats that resulted in the Minnesota House being taken over by the Democrats as a majority. So now all of a sudden, they were able to push it off for many years and say, well, you know, you don't have to worry about gun violence. You can talk all you want about this. It's not an issue. Well, now it's an issue, and they've got to address it. So they're coming up with these milquetoast bills, this window dressing, to claim that they've addressed it, and to go and claim to the public that they're addressing it seriously, trying to reduce gun violence. But in fact, that's all it is window dressing. They're milquetoast. They're not going to get the job done. And if they really want to do something serious and important, they should pass the bills that the House has already passed. That's what the Minnesotans very broadly have said they want to see.
Senator Latz, are there any Republicans who've come to you to talk about these proposals? Is there any room for bipartisan compromise for your bills?
There's already been a lot of bipartisan compromise on my bills. If you compare what's before the legislature now, what's been offered or attempted to be offered as amendments on the Senate floor, the modifications that we made even before the introduction a year and a half ago of the background check bill, for example, very large changes in those. And those changes resulted in part from my conversations behind the scenes with a lot of Republicans who came to me, and I went to them as well. The information I got from talking with gun owners as well about what would work, do they think, what could they support, what couldn't they support. So we're to the point now where we've got very middle of the road proposals that reflect bipartisan compromise, that have across Minnesota bipartisan support. At some point, you get beyond the point of effectiveness if you keep compromising and ruling things out.
So is this, are you alluding to sort of a McConnell situation? Do you feel that privately you have enough Republican support if this came to the floor, it would pass and it's leadership that's stopping it? Or do you think that the Republican senators themselves are not going to publicly cast a vote in support of even your more modest versions of these bills?
Well, I can't sit here today and tell you that I've got ironclad votes to pass these on the Senate floor. I can't. We also have Senator Gazelka has made a political promise to his constituents and to the gun owner groups very explicitly, they've been very public about this, that they will not pass these bills. So they may enforce their discipline on the floor if it gets to a floor vote. They fought us tooth and nail on germaneness objections to our attempts to offer them as floor amendments last year. So I don't think we're ever going to see a floor vote on it until we get a new Senate. But you know, that's the way it is. You know,
Will you try to amend them onto today's legislation?
Well, we're going to see what happens in the hearing coming up. Pay attention.
Senator Limmer did mention today with the background check bill, he called it a means to having a gun registration system. But you've said that that was removed from the bill. Is there still confusion among Republicans as to what's in your bills?
I don't think there's confusion. I think they are intentionally misleading the public about what these bills say. Because I've gone over these bills over and over again. I've talked about them in committee. I've talked about them in press conferences. I explained again up in Hibbing. There is no conceivable way that the background check bill we have could ever result in a registration system. And they know it. And the gun owners groups know it. But it doesn't fit their talking points. It doesn't gin up their base. It doesn't excite the people that they want to contribute to the gun owners groups and to come out and force to vote for the Republican candidates. So it doesn't serve their interest to say what's actually in the bill. And I can give you the point-by-point details on how there's no way you could construct a registry out of this. But just in short form, the data about a sales transaction that occurs in the background check bill will be held only by the buyer and the seller unless there is an investigation going on in which that gun was utilized in a crime and the law enforcement is trying to trace the provenance of the firearm that was involved. There is no place, no central repository, any repository to which data is reported on sales or from which it could be aggregated. There's just no way a registry could be completed here.
Are there any other questions?
I think we have a committee that's going to start in a few minutes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.